if not the apex of Jujutsu, let us take it one level down. What's up, guys? Hunter here, and here we are to theorize and discuss hypothetical maximum techniques for the strongest sorcerer of the modern day, and possibly all of history, Satoru Gojo. So, in chapter 230, Frizzle of Jujutsu Jizzle, we had Gojo Satoru admit that, oh, wait a minute, Mahoraga may just be him. He may just be a little bit like that, okay? Maybe I don't need to take it just a little bit more seriously. Start taking it a little bit up a notch, know what I'm talking about? And that's how he feels at the moment. And thusly, he realizes he has to hit Mahoraga with one big bad bang. And the chapter ends off with Gojo saying, I'll have to finish this with unlimited hollow. So a lot of people, myself included, have taken this to mean that he's going to pull out a maximum, because we know Mahoraga is currently, through Megumi's adaptation, immune to the domain. And obviously, remember, Gojo's still brain damaged, so ultimately the only thing he has access to that could hypothetically be powerful enough to one-shot Mahoraga, and at the same time be an absolute one-shot, is something like unlimited hollow. Now, this isn't hollow purple. It seems like a combination between two separate techniques, like unlimited as in unlimited void and hollow as in hollow purple, but ultimately I'm going to just take that as a maximum. And I suppose this should technically be the name, but I'm going to come with alternate names anyway, because that's more fun to me. But let's not waste any more time, and let's hop right into it. What's up, guys? Hunter here, and fun fact, have it on me. I keep it on me at all times. But another thing is that this maximum has to fit into a couple criteria in order to make it work. And I've come up with 3 separate ideas that I believe fit within the general criteria of what Gojo says and the expectations of the series up to this point. So, rule number 1, it needs to be able to one-shot Mahoraga. Like, one-shot it. As Gojo puts it himself, that leaves one way to erase Mahoraga in a single blow. So ultimately, it cannot be like a little baby maximum. It can't have a little special effect. No, it needs to absolutely erase Mahoraga from existence in one hit. So that's stipulation 1. Stipulation 2, it cannot be an instantaneous technique, which is a little bit whack, but it cannot be an instantaneous technique. As Gojo mentioned, it has charge time. And this is why a lot of people think it's just like a really big hollow purple, and we'll be covering that in a second. But with that being the case, we know it has to have a charge time. Number 2, there has to be a reason that Gojo has never pulled it out before. Notably, if he can use domain after domain after domain after domain after domain after domain after domain with no repercussions, no drawbacks, why isn't he just spamming the maximum left and right? Like, if this is just that deadly, that powerful, that juicy, that's able to wipe Mahoraga off the map in one hit, why isn't he spamming it? Those are the 3 criteria that need to be met. But actually, I lied. There's one more criteria. I want to make one maximum for each type of maximum technique we've seen in the series. Notably, the maximum technique is arguably the rarest of the apex of Jujutsus. Like, there are a bunch of domains. Technically, you could argue there are only 2 barrierless domains, which technically makes maximums less rare than barrierless domains, which is true. But in terms of just overall domains, there are a bunch of domains. All of differing varieties and backgrounds, but maximums, there are only 3. And they're from characters that, like, one of which you would expect, the second of which you probably wouldn't, and the third of which, yeah, you would expect. So let's cover them and why I need to make one of each, and why I think some are more interesting than others, and while some are more boring than others. Number 1, we have the first maximum that we see in the entire series, maximum winking. Yeah. Remember? Maximum winking? Remember how effective that bad boy was? Yes, Maximum Winking is the maximum ability used by the Mega Master. Hold on, let me double check. I was about to say Megami for some reason, but I believe it's SO. You have SO. So, Maximum Winking. Allow me to read the description straight from the Holy Grail that is the JJK Wiki. Rock technique. Can't read. Rot technique. Maximum winking. Manipulates the user's blood and shapes it into large wasp-like wings. These wings can be used to create vector lines of blood that can be used for offensive purposes or to increase the user's maneuverability. While the lines of blood connect with their target, they are instantly burned by the corrosive effects of the blood. Maximum winking is boring. It's just the technique plus. But then again, it has a little extra special property to it that it does graft itself to the user. So that's the maximum one that I'm going to be making. One technique that grafts itself to Gojo himself, and ultimately kind of just does the same thing that the regular technique would do with just a little bit extra potency. Number two, the second big meaty maximum that we see in the entire series would happen to be, I lied, you gotta go back in time. And I kind of used, ironically enough, technically I'm right within JJK, the main manga. Now, this, in terms of Maximum Wind King, was the first maximum we've ever seen. But the real first maximum we've ever seen was actually way back when in JJK 0, which was Maximum Uzumaki. Maximum Uzumaki is what I like to call the opposite. AKA something that seems so contradictory to the base technique that it kind of feels weird that it's still part of cursed spirit manipulation. Essentially, all Maximum Uzumaki does is take all the cursed energy of all the cursed spirits and boom, fire it at you. And it distracts the technique if you have any high-level cursed spirits used in it. Though, I think about it, does it really, like, did Geto get any abilities from that special grade curse that he used in Uzumaki? That was a special grade. It was one of the vengeful spirits. Well, then again, maybe Geto hadn't thought of that at that point, but essentially, it gives you the ability of whatever high-grade cursed spirit you use in the Maximum Uzumaki, but you can only use it pretty much one time. It's a temporary technique, but still, having a nice extra technique is cool. But considering the main use of cursed spirit manipulation is to have a vast army, diluting the perk of having a mass army in order to just get a big ol' energy blast, which is something that other sorcerers can kind of just do, not the best inherently, but it still has its uses. And thusly, the second maximum we'll have to make is a opposite maximum, one that seems to play contrary to the basic manifestations and usage of the Limitless / Six Eyes themselves. And the final one is just technique but big. I kind of jokingly call Maximum Wind King this, but Maximum Wind King is what I like to call a graft maximum, aka one that extends the usage of the technique on oneself and to others. That's what Maximum Wind King is. Meanwhile, Maximum Meteor is literally just a big rock. Like, it's a big rock on fire. Like, there's nothing actually that special about it. It's just a big old rock. And I mean, it does its job. Don't get me wrong. It's not like I can say Maximum. Well, actually, it doesn't. Unironically, it doesn't. It does not hit a single person. Well, maybe it hit some innocents. Maybe it did hit some innocents that were chilling in a building. But, like, in terms of doing damage to any characters that we actually saw on panel, it didn't even hit anybody. It was used as Jogo's gravestone. That's all Maximum Meteor was. But it literally just is Jogo's technique, but big. So thusly, we shall be talking about a maximum of the Limitless that is just the technique, but big. And considering that, in my opinion, is the most boring one, we're going to be talking about the Jogo-style maximum first. So, what would be something big, beefy, it's just purple big? Like, I wish I could drag this out and make it more long and complicated. He says unlimited hollow, unlimited taking off the limiters of the size, making that big boy beefy and throwing it at somebody. Which is weird enough because purple's already, like, quite large. It's quite a big thing. At least from what we've seen, it's quite like, it wiped out a whole section of the forest. But to be fair, it's not that much bigger than Gojo himself. So maybe unlimited purple, in a similar vein to what Yuki's black hole would have been, would simply be a purple given Giga form. Big enough that if it were to hit Maharaga, it would absolutely annihilate it. Though admittedly, the properties of purple are a little bit weird, I won't lie to you. Like, is it existence erasure? Is it not existence erasure? I'm leaning towards it's not, because if it's existence erasure, then technically it should. I think it should hit the soul. But Sukuna was able to regrow the arm. So we know it wasn't, like, actually a soul attack. Because you usually can't heal those. You usually get cooked if you get hit with a soul attack. So I don't think, maybe it is just an existence erasure, like it wipes things out. But even still, it should be enough to do enough damage to Big Papa Maharaga, especially if it's unlimited. Essentially, imagine a purple that instead of being, like, a bit taller and wider than Gojo himself, it's literally just the size of a building. Like, just a whole building. Like a whole massive building. And you may be wondering, well, does this fit the criteria? Yes, number one, it would be able to one-shot Maharaga. Can you imagine Maharaga getting smacked in the face with a gigantic purple? Like, legitimately, just a massive big old thing. Especially considering Maharaga has been, like, kind of small. Like, relative to the sizes that we've seen of the beast, Maharaga is relatively small. A just building sized, or heck, even a floor sized purple would be enough to hit and cover all of Maharagi. It would be a single blow kind of thing. As for the other criteria, would it take a while to charge? Basic purple seems to take a while to charge, no matter what. Like, whether it be the full incantation versions that we see at the start of the Gojo and Sukuna fight, or even the one that he could just throw out casually. Remember, he had to go through the whole, like, goody ba, and then he launched it, and that's how Hanami was able to dodge it. So, thusly, the unlimited variation of it, where it essentially is just purple with all the strengths taken off bit by bit, and just fires it, I mean, it works. It would be a one-shot. It's big enough, and it would take time to charge. And why wouldn't Gojo have used this earlier in the series? Well, think about the people Gojo's fought, and when he's fought them. With Jogo, was not a threat. Or at least not a threat that he considered taking seriously enough to whip out a maximum on. For One Finger Sukuna, once again, not a threat that Gojo deemed worthy of taking out a maximum on, and plus he was testing Itadori in the first place. Maybe if Itadori didn't get control back, he would have used it, but even that, I highly doubt it. One Finger Sukuna was no threat to Gojo. Then, who else does he have? The Disaster Curses? Oh yeah, you know, that big group of individuals that was hiding amongst a big group of individuals that he specifically did not want to execute? Yeah, obviously he wouldn't whip it out then either. And same thing for even back in the Hanami situation where he wanted to wipe out Hanami. Yeah, Hanami was not big enough of a threat. If he believed that both Yuji and Todo were able to take out Hanami, or at least survive long enough that he could cook up a purple from long range and fire it at him, obviously he wasn't going to whip it out against Hanami. And finally, he's fighting Maguna. Not Sukuna, Meguna. He wants his kid back. He's not going to whip this out on Sukuna at random. So that would explain why he hasn't yanked it out anywhere in the series. And it fits to just technique but big. I don't know. It's kind of just boring, and that's why I don't like it. I feel like it's the least interesting way you could take a maximum. But considering we only have 3 maximums, and they're all, I mean, I hate to say it, but they all are kind of unironically boring. Like, big energy blast. Technique plus with the wings, which is kind of what a domain is already. And then technique but big in the case of Maximum Meteor. They're already kind of boring, so I guess a big, massive purple blast would be fine enough. I mean, I wouldn't be the biggest fan of it, but I would get why Gei would do it. Gojo's powers are complex in how they exist. They're not actually complex in what they do. Red pushes you. Blue pulls you. Purple erases you. Unlimited Void stuffs you. Nothing. And literally, finally, Infinity is just, no, you can't hit me. Like, what the techniques do, simple. How they work, a little bit complicated. So thusly, big purple. We all good. Next up, since we now have Maximum Meteor's equivalent out of the way, let's move on to, in my opinion, the second least interesting, but second most interesting at the same time one, a variation of Maximum Wing King. Now, notably, once again, Gojo calls this Hollow Unlimited, or is it Unlimited Hollow? Let me double check. I don't want to misquote the strongest sorcerer here real quick. But finish this with Unlimited Hollow. So Unlimited Hollow. What else could that mean in a very specific thing similar to Maximum Wing King? Another 2-word maximum. So we know that Gojo has Hollow Purple. And considering that Maharagi is already adapted to blue and the extrapolation of blue, which is the neutral limitless, and currently is pretty much adapted to red. Not really adapted to red, but mostly adapted to red. Purple's the only option. And we also know, based on how Esso's ability worked, he kind of just his technique out his back. But we aren't dealing with the average Saiyan sorcerer anymore. We're dealing with the strongest sorcerer. The strongest Saiyan sorcerer. And thusly, what we could have here is not just the wings coming out of the back and be able to individually control, hypothetically, a wing purple, but let's just cover Gojo in purple. All of Gojo covered in purple. Now, you may be wondering, why do that? But remember, if we're just extending the technique to Technique Plus, that is essentially what Maximum Wing King is, it just upgrades the technique. We could literally just do that by having Unlimited Hollow be Gojo coating himself in purple. And this wouldn't be the first time he's coated himself in his technique. Remember, the main reason all of Gojo's punches really mess people up is because he coats his fists in blue. We haven't, I don't think has he ever coated them in red? I don't think so. We've never seen him coat them in red. But he coats his fists in blue. We have not seen him do it with red. And obviously, you'd probably want to see him do it with red first. But considering red would just send his opponent away, I would get why he wouldn't do that. But considering purple is erasure, then if he coats himself in purple, replaces the basic layer of infinity that surrounds him with purple, then just maybe he would be able to tear through everything by simply dive bombing through it. And what do I mean? By covering himself in purple, by essentially covering himself with an eraser, all he needs to do is just run at Mahoraga. Like straight die, like give him a big old hug and just tear through him, and then just keep diving through him. Once again, Gojo can fly very easily, mind you. It would not be a problem for him to just whoop and give Mahoraga a big old hug and erase the darn thing. And the funny thing is, this would kind of play into what Mahoraga is right now. Mahoraga is the turn-off button to the infinity. And thusly, Sukuna's more than willing to throw Mahoraga at Gojo, because he's like, it's not going to do anything. But imagine Gojo activates Unlimited Hollow, coats himself in that gorgeous purple glow. Sukuna, not realizing what's going on at first, lets Mahoraga run in and attack. Mahoraga reels back with its sword. It's just, and then the sword erases out of existence. Mahoraga goes to punch it. Sukuna realizes what's going on and says, "No, Mahoraga, please, my father, don't do this to yourself." And Mahoraga's fist gets vaporized. And then Gojo just dives through Mahoraga. Notably, we don't actually see ever how Mahoraga like perished before. We're not sure if it's his head, his brain. Like, what is the percentage of Mahoraga you need to erase in order to actually annihilate it? Like, what's the limits of its regeneration? But presumably, considering Gojo in the recent chapters is able to just like arm block it, and Mahoraga is like using my arm as comparison. Let's say my arm is Gojo's arm. Mahoraga's whole arm was like the length of the sword difference from the size of Gojo. I'm pretty sure if Gojo were just to dive bomb through Mahoraga, that meets the condition of one-shotting Mahoraga. You could just dive through the wheel, see if that works. See if that erases Mahoraga. So there's that condition met. Number two, would this be something that would take a long time to charge? Yeah, because Gojo would be fundamentally changing the properties of his infinity. Instead of him having a barrier around him that will stop everything from approaching him, it's literally going to erase things. Of course it would take a long time to charge. It'd be super duper annoying. And thusly, Sukuna, realizing what's going on, is like, whoa, bucko. I don't want you doing that, and would lunge in and try to fight him. And then, doesn't meet the criteria of Gojo never using it in a fight before. Yes. Because like 9 out of 10 times, most people can't deal with the basic level of his infinity. Heck, he ran into people who literally had the hard counter to his ability, and he just said, I bet. Turn it up a notch. And then he turned it up a notch, and suddenly they couldn't compete anymore, as he literally says about Hanami. So that's it doesn't seem too unreasonable to me that if he were to coat himself in purple and start to swing on people, he would actually erase them from existence. And to be fair, it is a little bit hard to justify why he wouldn't use this against Hanami and Jogo and Choso, but at the same time, he was still covered by a bunch of people. And thusly, dive bombing through them would likely erase them from existence too. And thusly, he probably wouldn't want to do that to a bunch of innocent people. Like, at all. Like, remotely. So thusly, it makes sense why he wouldn't use it there. Same thing for Jogo when he was fighting Jogo solo. Jogo was not a threat. He was not maximum worthy. And I know you're wondering, well, Pencil, didn't he pull out his domain? Yes, to counter Jogo's domain. That's the only reason he whipped that bad boy out. Gojo obviously wasn't going to whip that out against One Finger Sukuna. He obviously was not going to whip that out against Hanami solo or the coat hanger dude. Like, there are some characters in most of the fights that Gojo's in that just don't warrant it. And same thing, once again, for Sukuna. Why would he not whip it out against Sukuna? Because Sukuna is Maguna, and ultimately, Gojo's fighting to save his son. I don't care how much me, Kashimo, the fandom, the Gege wants Sukuna to just be overridden and erased completely by Gojo just stop caring about Megami. Nah, he still cares, and thusly he wouldn't use it against his son. And thusly, that's why Gojo has not whipped it out and smacked it on the table. And this directly correlates to Wing King, but once again takes it up to the next level. That's the big thing about these techniques, specifically from Gojo. You kind of want them all to be a level above whatever they're being compared to. For the first one, it would literally just be bigger than Maximum Meteor. Oh yeah, I said it. If Jogo, a creature that has like, what, 9 fingers? 9 fingers? 8 to 9, being generous, of Sukuna's cursed energy when in terms of fingers. And Gojo should be around lesser than Yuta, who has a little bit under half of Sukuna's cursed energy amounts. It would make sense that Gojo would be able to fuel a technique that large. In the case of Unlimited Hollow, basically Maximum Meteor, and same thing for something like this. Would it be strenuous? Would it take a lot of energy? Would it be super duper complicated to merge blue and red so well that he can coat his entire body in purple and release this natural, like, kind of super barrier that erases everything that comes in contact with it? Yes, once again, that meets the long charging criterion. This one's more interesting to me because it would just be hilarious to see Gojo start dive bombing through things and, like, seeing just the world itself be erased by his presence. Like, he could literally just start flexing. Like, he would, like, ironically enough, you could literally have a similar scenario to what happened with Hanami back in Shibuya, where Hanami lunges in, tries to do a little something, and Gojo's like, "Oh, I have an idea." And he just goes, "Ah!" And then just unleashes the unlimited hollow barrier around him and just wipes Maharaga out of existence. That would also be a way to one-shot it if you think diving through Maharaga is a little bit too unserious. So, thusly, we've seen he can expand his infinity barrier. Why not expand an unlimited hollow barrier? It's called unlimited for a reason. But that's the second one. The final one, the most fun one, the most intriguing one to me, would in fact be the unlimited hollow variation that is comparable to Maximum Uzumaki. Now, notably, I was a little bit critical of Maximum Uzumaki earlier. I didn't necessarily get the idea of drawing down your own utility for a one-time usage of a technique and a big old cursed energy blast, something that other sorcerers have just proven the ability to do casually. But I do like the idea of the maximum sort of being the opposite of the base technique rather than just an extension of it. It kind of allows it to be a bit different from domains, which are also supposed to just be technique plus. That's literally what Chimera Shadow Garden is for Megami. It's just this technique at 120% efficiency and potential. So thusly, something like Maximum Uzumaki, something that acts in direct opposition to Cursed Spirit Manipulation for the most part, seems interesting. But how do we apply such a concept to the Limitless? The Limitless is so stupidly broken. Why would you even want an opposite of it? Like, the neutral Limitless, red, blue, purple, like all that good stuff. Why would you want an opposite to it? And at first, I didn't really think of anything. And obviously, I couldn't do anything with the 6 eyes because I already believe the 6 eyes is kind of more for the domain. And I want to differentiate it from the domain as much as possible. That's why you haven't seen any of the maximums relate with anything to do with information. I just want them to be entirely separate from the domain. And also kind of keep in line with the fact that Gojo is in fact brain damaged, and thus anything that has to do with him manipulating information would probably just fry his brain even more. So what's the final thing that could contradict the Limitless to the point where it would fit the motif of an opposite maximum set up by Maximum Uzumaki? This is the one that feels a little bit different, and to the point where I thought of a name for it immediately, while the other two took some time. Instead of Unlimited Hollow, I would call this Maximum Annihilation. Why? So, the thing with the Limitless is that it brings impossibilities to reality. It literally creates negative matter, negative mass, in the case of blue, in order to draw things in. Literally the universe attempting to fix itself by filling in that space. That's what blue is. The repulsion of things, the manipulations of opposing forces brought forth into reality to create repulsion. That's what red is. Heck, even hollow purple itself is a contradiction and convergence of infinities, something that doesn't typically exist within our reality. The Limitless is all about doing the impossible, manifesting the impossible, creating the impossible. So what would the opposite of the Limitless be that is still actually worthy of being used in combat? Well, why not an Unlimited Hollow, or a Maximum Annihilation that literally erases you from existence? Instead of bringing the imaginary mass forward, it erases it. Absolutely. It just hard delete button. Like, there's no way out of it. You're lost. You're done, son. You get hit by Maximum Annihilation and you're maximally annihilated. Simple as that. Now you may be wondering, wait a minute. Hold on there, pencil man. How do you expect this to even work? If it's something like Unlimited Hollow, it has to be a big ol' energy blast, right? And yes, once again, remember, this is a maximum that is opposed to the basic variation of the Limitless. So instead, of anything be related to a barrier, anything be related to the manifestation of impossibilities, anything being related to anything of the sort, what we're really gonna do, we're gonna get whipping up in the kitchen, is in fact the opposite. Instead of Gojo maintaining the neutral limitless barrier, or even something akin to the secondary maximum of unlimited hollow, which allows him to cover himself in purple, what Gojo would do is he would infuse his hands. These grippers right here, he would infuse them with all the cursed energy he could muster. It would take a solid minute to charge up. It would be something that is super duper difficult to do on short order, but he doesn't. Focuses it. He's dodging, he's bobbing, he's weaving. And then this condition has to be met for maximum annihilation to be activated. Gojo must touch you with both of his hands, like on top, like he has to whoop, he has to grab you, both hands, and hold you for 10 seconds. Now, you may be wondering, that's a little bit short, right? Like 10 seconds? Like, come on now. How is 10 seconds going to be valid? Remember, this is the man that has super advanced perception of time. Like he relived multiple months, if not years of his life in what, a minute? Like, 10 seconds may not be long to us, but in the world of JJK, where these two monsters can be argued to have inaccessible speed, 10 seconds is an eternity for things to happen. Especially when you have two angry beasts lunging at you, one of which has negated your infinity since you are now in contact with it. That's the other big cost of this. The infinity would literally have to be turned off. In a similar vein to how Maximum Uzumaki sacrifices the utility of cursed spirit manipulation by burning up a bunch of cursed spirits and draining them down to cursed energy, Maximum Annihilation would end up turning off the safety, essentially removing any barriers, any guard, any defense against other attackers. It is all on the whims of the Limitless user in order to survive for those 10 seconds. And since this is Satoru Gojo, he's not going to lose, and thusly he'd be able to do it. But then what happens after these 10 seconds are passed? Remember, one of the conditions that needs to be met is that this has to one-shot Maharaga. Well, essentially, you know how do I put this? You know how, remember Stardust Breaker? Have y'all seen Fusion Reborn? The famous Dragon Ball Z movie? If you haven't, there's a character, is this spoilers? I mean, Fusion Reborn is like 20 years old. In Fusion Reborn, what happens is Gogeta swings a little ball of energy. It goes inside Janemba, and then Janemba is like, I bet, and then goes to swing Gogeta. Gogeta face tanks it like the Chad he is, and then Janemba literally disappears from the inside out. Like, legitimately, he just atomizes and then explodes. That is what would happen with Maximum Annihilation. The reason you need to hold on, you're going to need a good solid grip of Maharaga's juicy 8-pack abs for 10 whole seconds, is because all that hollow purple energy, all that erasure energy that's being charged into your big old grippers is being transferred to your opponent. And once the transfer is complete, considering they are not a Limitless user, holding in that much erasure energy is just going to delete you. It is going to delete you from the inside out. Before Maharaga's regeneration, adaptation could take place, it would literally expand throughout the entire creature and just boom. At best, and I mean at best, the wheel would live, because it floats above Maharaga's head, but presumably since it's tied to Maharaga, that would be vaporized too. And thusly, Maharaga gets deleted in one shot. It would take a decent amount of time, not just to charge up, but to actually execute. It fits within the contradictory nature of what this final maximum should be in comparison to Maximum Uzumaki, coming with the downside of removing any defense, like the Cursed Spirit Manipulation maximum removes the upside of getting the juicy, extra scrumdiddlyumptious army. And finally, why wouldn't have Gojo used this earlier? I mean, like, it's just annoying, and he never needed to. For the earlier fights, once again, against One Finger Sukuna, no need to. He was not trying to erase Sukuna from existence. For the Jogo fight, was not trying to erase Jogo from existence. If anything, he wanted information out of Jogo. That's why when he was in Unlimited Void, he didn't just exercise him with the purple. He ripped his head off and was like, all right, tell me what you got. And then he did that. Hanami, once again, a long-range thing. No need to teleport in there and erase Hanami from existence. Same issue previously with Shibuya. Technically, you could argue he could just teleport to them and grab, but seemingly enough, Gojo never uses his teleporting efficiently at all. I just blame that on Gege. Like, if you don't want your character to be able to teleport and make me not wonder why they aren't using it in battle, don't give them the ability to teleport. Just don't do it. So, you could easily argue he can build it up and teleport, but then the condition of holding for 10 seconds would also make it a little bit difficult. The other cursed spirits would definitely still attack while Gojo's trying to grab onto somebody for 10 seconds. And then finally, same thing for Meguna, it's still his son. He does not want to erase his son from existence. So there you go. Those are 3 maxims. The first one I would literally just call Unlimited Hollow. Probably like Maximum Unlimited Hollow Purple. It would just be Hollow Purple with big wipes you out. Big old beam. Gone. There you go. Most simple, most easy, most clean. Second, I'll give you the good old fashioned, a nice old juicy juice. What I would call maximum, well, here's a weird thing. I was thinking of calling it like Unlimited Hollow Man, but that sounds so weird. The second one's a bit hard to name. I actually do want your help with this one. Like, what would you name the second one? Remember, this is Gojo essentially replacing his neutral infinity barrier with a purple barrier. It is meant to erase you on contact. If you try to hit Gojo, you get erased. So, maybe just maximum unlimited, well, I guess Unlimited Hollow works, but Hollow Unlimited, I'm trying to think, because Maximum Wing King, Maximum Hollow Void, where Gojo essentially becomes a void that erases everything in contact with it. I don't know. I'm once again very shaky on that one. Tell me what you guys name the second one, or even the first one, or all of these. And then the final one, Maximum Annihilation. It literally just, boop, you're wiped out of existence. You have no recourse. You tried to fight Gojo, you made the mistake of trying to fight Gojo. Good night, buddy. And then you get erased from existence. All these would fit. All these fit within the criteria. If they don't, remind me why they wouldn't fit in the criteria. And tell me what you guys think. Do you guys have any ideas for what the maximum of the strongest sorcerer could be? Do you guys have any hope of it actually working at Mahoraga? Or do you think Sukuna will wriggle his way out of this one as well? Please let me know all that and more in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure the little notification bell so you do not miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below where you can support me for as low as $1 a month to get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You can also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Now, thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dago the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a very big thank you to our $3 members, Recliner Plays and Red Wolf 4765. I'd like to give another very big thank you to our $5 patrons, Alex Ice Rose, Art Goon, DemXLND, Midnight Gemlord, Red Wolf 4765, and Sean. I'd like to give another very big thank you to our $10 patrons, Demokami, Joaquin, and Ravi Uchiha. I'd like to give another gargantuan thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose.